Okay, so here's our lion, and just like our dog that we used before, we're going to follow the same pattern where we have a larger chunk for the front of the body, a smaller chunk for the back of the body, and each leg is made up of 5 main parts. The hip, 1, 2, 3 for the leg all the way down to the ankle, and then 1 for the paw. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 1 for the shoulder, 2, 3, 4 for the leg, and then 5 for the paw. So let's see if we can apply that same basic idea here. Yeah, and again, you see this back part of the body small, the big part right here. This lion has a neck that's kind of hidden from our view because of the large mane, which we're going to model. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. Remember, we're sticking to circles and ovals, squares including rectangles, and triangles, although I don't foresee using triangles on this guy. I don't see anything, but who knows, maybe there will be. And remember, we're not going to model these back legs on the other side. When we're in Tinkercad, we're actually going to copy these legs, flip them and mirror them, and then adjust them to match this. It'll save us a lot of time, and it'll make our animal look more consistent. Okay, so let's take a look here. First of all, I'm going to start with the big front part of the body. And to me, I'm kind of seeing a rectangle here. Remember, don't worry if that goes too far. We're not going to actually see that. It's going to be covered by other things in the model, but we do need something to fill in that part of the body. And then we don't want to go all the way to the back of the animal. We're going to go to about right here. And that's going to be a significantly smaller rectangle. Okay, so we have the 2 main parts of the body. This hip muscle here, you can see this hip is really big. So there's 1. Huge muscles. These lions are very, very strong, right? So 1, 2. This leg is definitely bent a lot different than the German Shepherds, isn't it? 3, 4. Notice how they overlap. If they don't overlap with Tinkercad, it doesn't stay together, and we can't print it. And our paw, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's go up here and apply that same formula. We don't really see the shoulder, but we know it's got to be there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When you get done, feel free to resketch those with your pencil. Again, I'm using a marker because if I didn't, you wouldn't be able to see it on this camera. But you should be using a pencil so you can redraw this stuff. Okay, we're not going to worry about this part of the leg here. I don't want to X it out because it looks, or this part of the paw. We're going to flip those and copy them later. So I'm going to go back and let's go over the, let's go to the mane here. The mane I'm seeing is a big oval, roughly like this. So I see a big oval for the mane here, and another one here. Definitely there's a neck in there somewhere, so I can put that in there just to fill it in. Probably a neck that goes up to here and goes into the head. Ooh, it's getting a little messy here, but that's okay. We'll be able to figure it out when we do dimensioning a little better. Okay, for this head up here, I'm seeing a shape. More mane. These lions have that hairy, furry mane. I see an ear here. Now for the face, again, we have one structure here, and then for the snout and the lower jaw. So, like that. I'm seeing a block. Ooh, I like that circle for the cheek. Blocky snout here. Look at the overlap. Don't worry if it overlaps too much. That's actually good. Okay, little guy, we got a little messy here, but I think I can figure it out when I dimension it. Oh, we got to do the tail. The tail, if you have a curved tail, it's very difficult to do. But what we're going to do is we're going to make a box this way. And it helps me to actually make little lines here. 1 line, 2 lines, 3 lines, 4 lines, and 5 lines. And then match a rectangle with overlap. So I'm not going to start right here. I'm going to go back and overlap it with a rectangle. And notice how it's a little smaller. Each one gets smaller because tails tend to get smaller as we get to the end. Make a long rectangle and overlap. And then finally 2 small ones. Oh, I don't like that. It needs to overlap some more. and then another one right here. Okay, so here we go. We have my lion. And so there's the lion drawing. And we're going to come back to this in a little bit, and I'll show you how to dimension it, which means measure all of the parts of it. So for our first example here, we have the German Shepherd dog. It's a line drawing. It's a pretty good one. It's a big. You can see we have a big picture and plenty of room, and there's not a whole lot of big, thick lines that are going to block our vision of the stuff that we're drawing. So I'm going to start with the body. Most mammals and a lot of animals you're going to draw have two main sections of their body. The upper part of their main body, which is usually bigger, bulkier, more muscular, and then the lower part of their body, which is usually skinnier or more lean. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to I'm seeing this shape for the big body here. So I'm going to just kind of draw. What I'm looking at is a rectangle. If you disagree and think that this would be better off as an oval, hey, I can't doubt that. I just chose a rectangle because that's what I like, but if you feel like it should be something different, it's no problem. But probably you want to have two shapes, the bigger one and then a smaller one back here. Okay, so I'm going to take the lower part of the body. This is important. They need to overlap. So I'm going to start this rectangle. I'm looking right here. Don't make it go all the way back because part of it's going to be the hip bone. I'd say the body goes about back to here. Again, you know, this isn't perfect, but it's easy to model in Tinkercad, and we can always add detail later to it if we need to. Let's go back here, and now let's start on the hips. So I'm seeing a big hip muscle, well, maybe about right here. See, that hip is going to kind of take care of a lot of the back part. So there's the hip. He's got another muscle that goes and kind of goes about right down to here. Right down to where his leg hinges. One more here. Here. And then the last one for the paw. Generally speaking, you can go hip, and then it's a 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5 for the paw. That's a good formula to use for the back leg. I'm not going to do this other one on the other side because on Tinkercad, I'm going to copy this one and then adjust it. So you don't need to model both of them. So like just model the one on the left side and this one on the left side. And when we're in Tinkercad, we'll copy it over there. So I'm not going to worry about that right now. Okay, let's go up here to the shoulder. Again, we're going to use that formula of 5 shapes. 1 for the shoulder, 1 for the hip. 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, and then 5 for the actual paw. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 2 shapes for the body, large one in front, smaller one in back. 5 for the back leg, big one for the hip, big one for the shoulders. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for the paws. Hey, we're making great progress here. Let's move on into the head. The head's often the part that needs to be done and redone. I can't stress enough. I'm doing it using a marker because this is a video and I want you to be able to see it. But you should really use a pencil for this. It's very important because you might make mistakes or want to do it again. Like I'm seeing this corner sticking out and I kind of wish I could redo that almost. So essentially what I'm looking at here, boy, I see a big kind of blocky shape for the upper part of the dog's head. I'm going to put that in right now. Looks like a block, kind of. So there's a part for the head. Look at that snout. There's definitely a snout here. Again, it to me appears to be a kind of a blocky shape. And I'm going to make that extend a little back. Remember, overlap is important. I'll show you why later when we draw these up. And then I'm going to make another one down here. So I have another rectangle here. And this rectangle, we could open it if we needed to. And then finally, I'm going to make a triangle to model this ear here. Okay, let's go back over to the tail. I'm going to make one large rectangle. Now listen, don't worry, you're not going to see this because it's going to be overlapped in Tinkercad. But in general, I'll make a couple of shapes. A couple of rectangles is what that looks like to me. Okay, so now we have our dog drawing ready to go. And in the next step, I'm going to do a few other shapes, and then I'm going to come back to this one, and I'm going to show you how to dimension and measure these shapes for Tinkercad. Okay. So now we're on our third quadruped, and just so you know, for this project, you don't necessarily have to pick an animal that exists today. You could choose an extinct animal like this. I'm going to try to say this right. Ankylosaurus. One of my students asked me to print this one for them, and I had no idea what they were talking about, so I kind of learned something new. So I chose this one because it's quite different from the previous ones that we had with the German Shepherd or the lion. Now on those two, if you remember correctly, we used two distinct segments for the bottom, or for the body, one larger for the front, one smaller for the back, larger for the front, smaller for the back. And this one, I don't think we're probably going to stick with that pattern. So for the body on this ankylosaur, and again, if I'm slaughtering that and getting it wrong, please forgive me. I'm going to probably stick with just one main shape. Same might be true if you were to do a pig or something like that. So I'm going to stick with one large. Oh, I mean, that just screams at me, hey, make an oval. Like, I can't deny that. So we're going to go with a big oval for the main part of the body. So that's definitely different from the previous one. I don't think I'm going to change up the idea of making 5 parts for the legs. Let's remember what we did there. We had the hips and the shoulder. The hips 1, then 2, 3, 4 for the legs, and 5 for the paw. Same thing with the lion. Hips and shoulder were 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I'm going to actually probably stick with that same idea here. It looks like it'll work. So I'm seeing a very large hip here. And you'll notice that's a big key for me, is I like to practice, get that muscle memory down of what it feels like to make that shape before I actually draw it. It'll get you better results. So like if you air trace it and then do it, it'll look a lot better. Okay, second segment of the leg goes down here. You can see it. There's a knee there. So I'm going to make this part go down here. Here's a little joint here. So 1, 2, 1, 2. 3, 4 for the ankle, 4 for the ankle. And now this looks like a triangle to me, this foot. I don't know what I'm going to use, but I might use a cone or something in Tinkercad, but definitely I'm seeing a triangle here. And remember, we're not going to worry about this part of the leg on the leg on the opposite side, because again, I'm going to say it again, you're probably getting tired of hearing it, but we're going to actually clone these and mirror them to the other side, copy and mirror them, and then we can adjust them to make them slightly different. Okay, so I'm going to finish doing this, and so we have a few things. Boy, this is going to be a cone, and from a side, the cone definitely looks like a big triangle. There, that looks a little better. And I have an oval shape at the end of it. Definitely. Okay, up here, I'm seeing probably a cylinder shape. So from the side, a cylinder actually looks like a rectangle, doesn't it? So there we go. And, oh man, I'm seeing definitely we're going to use a lot more triangles in this, right? So let's model. Boy, this is going to be a tricky shape for the head. So let's give a triangle here. And what you can do in Tinkercad with this one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a triangle, But I'm going to actually use a hole to cut off the end of it. But I feel like I have to have that shape. Even if it doesn't stick out, don't worry. I'm going to dimension it. And then I know when I build it in Tinkercad, I can always just cut off the end of that shape. And keep that in mind. That's a tool that you can use in these things. I need another triangle that goes down for that sharp beak at the end. And I'm going to use a big rectangle for this part. Hey, if you ever see anything in this and say, what's this guy talking about? That should have been a different shape. I think I would have used an oval instead of a rectangle. Hey, no problem. That's where your touch as an artist comes in. If your ideas for how to make this are different than mine, no worries. That's perfectly fine. I'm seeing here, hey, we can copy and paste stuff and make patterns in Tinkercad. So don't worry about modeling every one of these spikes, but you should model one of them. And then you can copy it and paste it and move it where you want to copy all the rest of them. And when you get down here, you could actually take this one and just shrink it down a little bit, holding down Shift to make them smaller and smaller. So I'm going to actually model one of these as 2 triangles. So there, we're just about done with abstraction. I'm going to make a little note here so I can remember when I do this that I'm going to cut this off. So I'm going to put cut hole. Okay, so thanks for watching, and in the next part of the video, we're going to go through and start dimensioning these animals.